Hello, my name is Sasha, and today I'm going to explain why. So today we're talking about names, how we chose our names basically. Let's go back in time, shall we? When I was a child, I never really disliked my name. I do remember that, like when I was 7, I discovered the name Lucy, and I was like, wow, why didn't you name me Lucy? That's the coolest name ever. But that didn't last very long, and I was mostly pleased with the name that my parents had given me. It was when I was 16 that I started feeling dysphoric when I heard my birth name, and so I started using it less and less. Fortunately, around that time, I also developed a pretty close group of friends, and so most of the time, probably half the time actually, but that was already cool for me, they call me by a nickname that was linked to my birth name but didn't sound the same. So it was cool. I wasn't out at the time except to one of them, so I never told them that my birth name made me feel uncomfortable. But it did, and it got worse and worse as time passed, just like my dysphoria did, as I explained in my last video. So when I was 17, when I met strangers, mostly on the internet, for example on Twitter, but also in the LGBT youth group that I talked about a few weeks ago, I didn't tell them my birth name. In the beginning, for like a couple months, I told them, you can call me whatever you want. You can call me birth name, you can call me nickname, you can call me Z. Z is the initial letter of my nickname, and it was always my favorite letter in the alphabet because it's cool, like Zorro and everything. So for a few months I went by Z. When I went to the LGBT group and we had to introduce ourselves, I was like, my name is Z, and people were like, okay, that's kind of weird, but that's fine with us. And I wrote it Z-E-D so that it was like an actual name and not just a letter. But that wasn't the best thing ever because I knew Z wasn't a real name, and although there's nothing wrong with coming up with new names, it was kind of complicated, and I knew I couldn't spend my whole life being called Z. Oh, there was also a phase where I was like, why do names exist anyways? Nobody needs a name. They're useless, and we shouldn't be forced to pick a name, so I've decided that I'm gonna have no name at all. And as beautiful and original as this idea may be, it doesn't work because you have to have a name to navigate the world, etc, etc, sadly. And so I decided to pick a real name for me. I considered going by the name that my parents would have given me if I had been assigned male at birth, which is Joseph. But it did feel a bit too masculine for me, and I didn't really feel like it fit me, so I didn't pick that one. But Joseph is my second name. I spent quite a lot of times on websites like list of 100 gender-neutral names that you could give your baby. I really wanted to have a gender-neutral name since I'm non-binary. I didn't want a name that sounded too masculine. I also asked people on Twitter what names they thought would fit me, either gender-neutral or masculine names. I remember people said Benjamin, Robin, Noah, and a few more. And one of my Twitter friends said Sasha. And when I read that, I was so happy because Sasha was a name I had always loved, and actually I knew I wanted to name one of my kids Sasha. And then I realized, if I love that name so much, why can't I be called Sasha myself? And that's how I picked my name. I told my friends I wanted to be called Sasha, and it was fine. A lot of them started using it immediately. When I came out to my parents, I told them that as well. It took a little bit more time. In the first few months, I did have kind of a hard time adjusting to that new name. It was kind of weird because when people called me by my birth name, I didn't feel related to it. I didn't feel like that was me. But at the same time, when people called me Sasha, I didn't feel related to it either. There even was a period where I was like, why don't I feel comfortable when people call me Sasha, or when people use masculine pronouns? Maybe I'm a fraud and I'm not really trans and I'm doing this for attention. Which is not true. It's normal that when you use a new name or when you change pronouns that you need some time to get used to it, and that doesn't mean you're not really trans. Also, last August I actually considered changing my name again, because since Sasha is a gender neutral name, when I told people that was my name, a lot of them still assumed that I was a girl, and that was pretty hard for me. So I actually considered going by Elliot, which was a name I also liked. I think Elliot is supposed to be gender neutral too in the USA, but it isn't in France, it's only given to boys. So yeah, I considered going by Elliot for a while, but then I realized changing names would be too complicated because I had already told my philosophy teacher that I wanted to be called Sasha, and she had told all the other teachers, and they would call me Sasha when I would go back to school, and it would be super complicated to tell them, no, actually my name is not Sasha, my name is Elliot, and etc. And that is not to say that you can't change names. It's normal if you want to try out a couple or even 3 or 4 names before settling on the name that you want to be called for the rest of your life. It is an important decision and you're allowed to try several times. Yeah, I think that's basically all I had to say. Now I feel really comfortable with the name Sasha, and I'm glad that I picked this one. Oh yeah, there was something I needed to show you. My friend gave me those socks. And also, if you want me to show you my other foot, this happened. Don't worry, it's nothing really important, it's just that I walked a lot on Tuesday and for some reason my foot is very fragile and it hurts like heck now, but it's probably gonna get better soon. Anyways, have a nice week guys, see you next Friday, bye!